It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
Welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. LSU, they get run ruled in a rubber match against Mississippi State 15-5 to drop the opening series in conference play, fall to 1-2 in the league, 17-4 overall on the season, and it wrapped up what was just a really bad weekend of baseball for LSU. There's no other way to put it. We're going to talk plenty about all of it. Now, we'll go through the games. We will absolutely address the woes on the mound. We will address the defensive woes. We will address things that went wrong at the plate and some things that went right at the plate. We'll talk about, how concerned should you be right now about LSU and where they go from here, because the one thing we know is the schedule is not getting any easier. Their start to conference play is a murderer's row. So we will go through all of it here over the next, call it 30 minutes or so. So buckle in. Glad you're here. Smash the like button. Share and get subscribed up to the YouTube channel if you have not already. Get subscribed up on your favorite podcast app if you have not already. Like and share there as well. It is greatly appreciated. So this is not going to be a very enjoyable show to do. This is not going to be a very pleasant show. There are not many fun topics to talk about here on this show because LSU played about as bad of baseball as they could all weekend long, and they won a game in between there, but even that was not without, trials and tribulations. So I actually, I want to start, since we were able to do the live reaction videos for the first two games, I want to start with game number 3. We'll kind of work in reverse order. Game 3 for LSU, you can really look at it in two different games. You can split it in half pretty evenly and see the very moment it got out of hand and you just completely got away from LSU. Early on in that game, you look at the first inning, and this was actually pretty surprising because Thatcher Hurd had been awesome in first innings all year long. I mean, it had been his best, most efficient, most dominant inning all year long. And he gives up the leadoff double to Amani Larry, but then almost works out of it. I mean, he gets a big strikeout on Rashawn, retires Dakota Jordan, which was a chore for LSU all weekend long and has been a chore for any team that Mississippi State has played, and that will continue to be a chore for any team that Mississippi State plays. So, that was huge. You intentionally walk Hunter Hines, and then that just kind of, sometimes that's a great move, and I get the thinking there, obviously. But, Connor Hyzak had done nothing but hit the baseball at that point of the weekend. The guy had 3 hits on Friday night. He had another hit on Saturday. So, guys got 4 hits so far on the weekend. But you take your chances with him, I understand. You're almost out of it, and he ropes the double inside the third base line, scores a run. Ultimately, you give up 3 doubles in that inning, all of them to left field, all of them down the third base line, if memory serves me correct, and you're down 3-0. And then LSU offensively started to chip away at Jurrangelo St-Juste. It just wasn't good enough. They got the leadoff man on in the second, didn't score. They got the leadoff man on in the third, didn't score. They got the leadoff man on in the fourth inning, didn't score. Finally, they break through with the leadoff man in the fourth, and that was Ashton Larson, draws the leadoff walk. Michael Braswell, who had a sneaky good weekend for LSU, hits the double into the right center field gap. You score Larson. And then Jurrangelo St-Juste just loses the strike zone. He just flat out loses the strike zone, ends up with 5 walks in that inning, and LSU ties the ball game up at 3. And you have to feel good at that point because Thatcher Hurd had settled in. Like after that first inning, he settled in as 0 in the second, a 0 in the third, a 0 in the fourth. He enters that bottom of the 5th, now in a brand new ball game with it tied up, and having retired, I believe it was 7 straight to that point. That's, okay, go throw a 0 out there and get your offense back on the field, back at the plate as quickly as possible. Because you, for the first time since really the third inning on Saturday, it felt like LSU had momentum in this series again. And you got So you get to that bottom of that 5th inning, and Hurd is facing Johnny Long, has him 0-2 and walks him. That's the 9-hole hitter, and you flip that lineup over, and that's immediately when it got contentious for LSU. Immediately when it got contentious for LSU. Credit Hurd. He does a great job against Amani. Larry there gets him to fly out weakly to right field. You're thinking, okay, here you go. You got to go through the meat of the order. This is going to be really tough for you, but you just got a big out there. Can you do it again? The answer was no. He gets Mershon. I believe he got into 2 strikes. Here I can double check that real fast as we speak, just so I can be totally correct and positive on that. Let's see. We're talking about the 5th inning here, bottom half. No, it was a 1-1 count. So it was a 1-1 count to Mershon. He singles, and that brings Dakota Jordan up with runners at first and second, and you knew it was going to happen. You could feel it. I mean, it's not. I don't want to be like just overly negative, but it wasn't going to go well. Just the vibe in that building, just the way things had gone for LSU all weekend. You could feel that 3-run homer coming, and he smashed it, and the game was effectively over at that point. You didn't have the momentum anymore. And Hunter Hines follows with a home run back-to-back. Ultimately, it's a 4 spot there. Credit LSU, man. They battled back in the 6th. Tommy White hits the 2-run homer. LSU again got the leadoff man on in that inning. In the top half of the 6th inning, Larson with his double to center. He gets all the way to 3rd, but White hits the homer. That's great. And then in the 6th, he gave up 5 more runs. It's just it was the story all weekend, and the game was over. You got run ruled 15-5. It turned on that Dakota Jordan homer. And like I said, you could just feel it coming. It was really disappointing because it looked like Thatcher Hurd really settled in, and you were finally getting a great starting pitching performance. Well, not a great, but you were finally getting a good starting pitching performance, and then Jordan hits the 3-run homer, and the air is just – I know they put the 2 runs up, but it just – you could feel in that moment State was not done scoring. Let's put it that way. And you get run ruled. If you want to go back a little bit to the other games real fast before we give our overarching thoughts, you look at Friday night, and it was really disappointing to see Luke Holman struggle like he did. He gave up 10 hits. Not all of them were hit hard. They hit his fastball really hard. LSU went into this series with they saw something to make them throw as many breaking balls as they did. I said this after the game Friday night. They were wrong. Whatever they saw was wrong. Now, granted, State hit everything, so it didn't really matter. Mississippi State had 41 hits this weekend. 41 hits this weekend. So it didn't really matter, but they went in with that specific plan, and they were wrong. Like, call it what it is. I think it was wrong because it didn't work. And you didn't have great control. It was wrong for a couple reasons. You didn't have great control or execution of the pitch, and when you did, State smashed it. Dakota Jordan, he hit the damn break. It was a breaking ball that he launched 400 bajillion feet to center field on Sunday to blow that game open. Like, that was a slider. It really wasn't a bad pitch either. He's just a really good hitter and crushed it. But it's Hunter Hines also hit slider out of the park. So again, man, I don't really know what they saw there, but it was disappointing to see Holman really struggle the way he did. And I'll give him. It looked like he was going to be fine. He got in trouble in the bottom of the 1st, got out of that, didn't allow a run to score. That was huge. Does allow one to cross in the 2nd, but makes a big pitch to get out of that inning before more damage is done. And then that's when LSU really went to work offensively. They had a great plan against Evan Sierra. They did very, very well against him. They got him out in 3 innings and ran the pitch count up to 67 pitches. Like, they were and they were hitting the ball very hard off of him. And you get the solo homer from Pearson, the 2-run homer from White. You're up 3-1. It looks like Holman, all right, man, can he settle in now? And maybe he's going to in that bottom of the third inning, but you have the throwing error on Braswell, and that keeps the inning alive. That should have been an inning double play. It wasn't. Extends the inning, ultimately costs your pitcher a run. And then in the 5th inning, same deal. You have the error in left field by Mac Bingham that cost you 2 runs. Holman, yes, he gave up 10 hits. The majority of them were singles, and of the 5 runs, only 2 of them were earned. No, he wasn't his sharpest, but he was let down by his defense just in an incredible way, as was most of the LSU pitching staff this past weekend, if we're being honest. So, I mean, and then the game got out of hand on you. I mean, it was, they won 10-4. You got shut down by Nolan Stevens, the freshman lefty, and I'm going to credit him, y'all. He was great. That guy threw 82 pitches and was fantastic. Just pounded the strike zone. I'll tip my hat to him because it seemed like it was his night. He had 2 2/3 innings pitched on the as his longest outing. He went 5 2/3 and punched out 8. He was in the zone. He was awesome. Did you want to see LSU do more offensively against him? Sure, but sometimes their guys are really good, and Nolan Stevens was really good that night, and you weren't going to hit him. Saturday, I thought it was obviously a great response by LSU, especially the way it started. They were all over Cale Steven. We talked about that after the game on Friday night, that's something LSU needed to do. They needed to get out there and get some runs on the board early, and they did that. You had the solo homer by White in the first inning, the 2-run shot by Jones. In the first inning, you're up 3-0. Gage Jump has a great first inning. His great first inning, you add 2 more on a 2-run homer in the top of the second. You're up 5-0 after an inning and a half. That's a great spot to be. You do give up the run in the second, but LSU responds immediately. You have another home run, 2-run shot by Hayden Travinsky, which, was great. I mean, all in all, you hit 4 home runs there in the first 3 innings and put up 9 runs. And you're thinking, all right, Gage Jump at that point, he's, through 3 innings, only giving up the 1 run, looking pretty good. And then that second trip through the lineup really got to him in the 4th inning. He ends up losing control a little bit, ends up with 3 walks, is chased from the ball game. The decision to go to Will Helmers really surprised me right there. And ultimately, I mean, he didn't get helped out by his defense either. You had, an unearned run come across yet again there for Helmers. And then they ended up going to Griffin Herring. I thought Griffin Herring really did stabilize the ball game. There. I mean, he got a huge strikeout of David Mershon to end an inning before Jordan came up with a chance to do a lot of damage with guys on base at States making their comeback. That would have been, I believe, in the 5th inning. And then you had to play at the plate later in the game to gun down what would have been the tying run. That was a massive defensive play. That was one of LSU's best defensive plays of the weekend, I should say. In the 8th inning, Christian Little gets that double play to end a scoring threat for Mississippi State. That was a positive moment there in the ball game. And Tommy White was just sensational at third base with his glove all weekend. Like, as bad as LSU's defense was, and it was, they committed 6 errors in 3 games. Tommy White was flawless over there at third base. I mean, he made great plays. Like, balls hit at him 108 miles an hour, and he's backhanding them and firing a seed across the diamond. Tommy White was great. So, I mean, ultimately, when you really, really needed it in that game, your defense stepped up and made the plays because this should be a really good defensive team. And you give the ball to Nate Ackenhouse, and he slams the door there for you in the 9th inning. So those are your games. We went through them. Now let's talk about the overall takeaways. I'm trying to honestly think where to start. Look, we talked about Mississippi State a lot, obviously, in the preview, and one of the things was they're playing better. Like, they were playing better. What you saw from them in the first 2 weeks of the season is nowhere close to the team that they were. And I thought the advantage that LSU was going to have was the depth on the mound. and I really liked LSU's advantage, I thought, on starting pitching. There are a lot of different scenarios I could have come up with where LSU would have lost this series. Because, I mean, it's the SEC. It's really difficult. Baseball's a hard game. There's plenty of scenarios I could have come up with. The one that actually happened, where LSU gives up 33 runs, commits 6 errors, is not one that I ever would have come up with. Because pitching and defense are supposed to be the strength of this team. And pitching and defense have been the strength of this team up until this point. Like, I know we get into this mode where they have this bad weekend and we all go, they're bad. They're terrible. This is the worst. I thought the pitching was supposed to be good, and we discount everything that they've done to that point. And that's not fair. Like, we can't do that. I understand, like, this was really bad, and we're addressing that right now. But what can't be dismissed is all the good that the defense and pitching staff have done up to this point. And I know what a lot of people are going to say, the competition, and I get it. Believe me, I've seen that enough already on Twitter. Well, they played a light schedule. What do you want them to do? Like, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want them to do there. Right? They played 5 straight games away from home. One of them against a top 15 team. You want them to play 3-game sets against Wake Forest and TCU? Like, what do you want them to do in the pre-conference? It doesn't, I hate that excuse. It does not matter, and I'm getting off on a tangent, I'm sorry. It does not matter who LSU plays in the pre-conference because you play in the best league in America. When it comes time to play conference play, it's always going to be a step up. It's always going to be harder than it was in the pre-conference. So it doesn't matter. So I don't want to discount everything the staff and the defense has done up to this point. But this weekend was bad, and you absolutely should question where they go from here going forward. 100%. So let's do that. And let's start on Friday night. Because, y'all, what happened to Luke Holman on Friday night is exactly why I'm fearful of him being in that role. Now, what I mean by that is he wasn't his sharpest, and the stuff isn't good enough to make up for some of that, right? Like, he's behind the count. He has to go fastball. His fastball's 92, 93 miles an hour. That's going to get smashed in this league, and it did on Friday night when he wasn't throwing breaking ball, because there were plenty of those too. The problem is none of your starters were good, so you're not going to make a change there right now. And you're going to look for them to bounce back. That was the most disappointing part of it for me, honestly, was the starting pitching. Because those guys are good. Like, and we can talk all we want about competition. Those guys are good. Because, I mean, you don't put... Luke Holman didn't give up a run for 25 2/3 straight innings to start the season. That's good no matter who you're playing against. That's impressive. Gage Jump didn't give up a run also for 25, the first 25 innings of his season. Plus, they have to bounce back because what you saw from them was, it was worrisome because it wasn't, it was worrisome because they got hit, they walked guys, the strikeout numbers were low. Like, none of it was good. None of it was good. That's why it's worrisome there on the mound. And yes, you should be concerned, but not to the point that we just completely dismiss everything that they've done up to this point, because I do believe this staff is very good. What we're not going to do is we're not going to sit here and tell you that, the season's over, because that's ridiculous. It's March, and they have 27 conference games left, and they're going to improve. They're going to get better. That's kind of the thing I'll go to. This was horrible. Like, it was really bad. But it's got to be the far end of the spectrum for them. Like, if I'm trying to put some type of positivity on this, find something, that has to be the far end of the spectrum for them. There has to be nowhere for them to go but up, because I don't think you can get much worse than what happened on the mound this weekend. Like, look, Glenn West, he covers LSU, Go 247, does great work. He tweeted this out through 6 innings on Sunday. LSU's pitching and defense through 6 innings on Sunday. 30 runs, they'd give up 33. 38 hits, they'd give up 41. 6 errors, thankfully they didn't commit any more there. Mississippi State with 2 outs, hit 462, with runners on 397, and with runners in scoring position 447. LSU could not finish hitters off this weekend. LSU walked hitters. LSU got just hammered. They got hammered on the bump. I don't know how you fix it. That's not my job. But what I do know is they have been really good at times this year, and that's in there, and there's plenty of talent. You just ran into a bit of a buzzsaw right now, and you got smashed. Now, a lot of that is your own doing. 6 errors. That's your own doing. The misplays in the outfield were very concerning. That's something that has to improve because you have too deep of an outfield for that to happen. Way too deep of an outfield for that to happen. Too veteran as well. Like Mac Bingham making the errors that he did, that is unacceptable for a guy who's in his 5th year of college baseball. So, look, they got a lot of work to do, and it's not getting easier. Florida's coming in now. You got Louisiana Tech in the midweek, who's a really good baseball team. Not going to get any easier for LSU. So, I mean, the best thing I can tell you, and I'll tell you this too, the way they used the pitchers was confusing to me this weekend. I mean, you're going predominantly fastball, slider, fastball, slider, fastball, slider, fastball, slider with Holman. You pull him, you bring in Gavin Guidry, who's predominantly slider. Right side. But I get it, in that spot, he's your highest leverage arm. You're in a big spot in the ball game. You're trying to keep a lead. I understand, or keep yourself in the game. I understand why you go to him in that spot. It's just a very similar look. And it's the same thing with, Guidry. The fastball tops out at 90 miles an hour. If he has to come over the plate with that, it's going to get hit. Justin Lohr struggled again, and that is very, very concerning to me. Will Helmers being first out of the bullpen was head-scratching to me. Why not go Griffin Herring there? I thought they all struggled. They all did. I thought Griffin Herring pitched well. I thought Nate Ackenhausen pitched well. I thought everybody else maybe had some moments, but ultimately struggled. And that's not a good look. It was a complete failure from the staff this weekend. That's it. That's the only thing I can really say. It was a complete failure from the pitching staff this weekend. They got a lot of work to do. Now, here's the thing. Do you trust Jay Johnson? Do you trust Nate Yeske? You should. Do you? But they have a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it because you got a elite offense in Florida coming into the box this weekend. So we'll see. You need a big bounce back. I don't expect changes to be made. Like, you're going to roll with the guys you got because they've proven to be good at points this year. They have a lot of work to do. And defensively, you need a major step up because when you're struggling like that on the mound, you cannot kick the ball around behind them. You got to pick your pitchers up. And LSU did not do that this weekend nearly enough. So I'll wrap it up on that. Just total failure from a pitching standpoint this weekend. I don't know how you can put it anywhere else when a team got 41 hits and 33 runs. The run rule, LSU got run ruled last year, y'all. Auburn run ruled LSU last year. That team. Run rules happen. I don't care. Offensively, and we'll wrap up. Let's talk about the offense. I think it's very easy to look at them and be like, oh, it was a bad week. I think if you really look at it, there is some positive offensively here for LSU. There's also some negative, believe me. I mean, they had opportunity, which falls into the positive and the negative because you were creating plenty of opportunities, getting the leadoff man on, all that. You weren't always coming through. I mean, we could go through situations in each game. One thing I didn't like offensively is there wasn't the constant pressure from LSU in this game. LSU, in game 2, they scored 9 runs in the first 3 innings. They didn't score another run the rest of the game. Now, you held on, ironically, because of clutch pitching and defense. But you weren't able to keep that pressure up against the State bullpen. I mean, that's because, especially, we talked about that. There's guys in that bullpen that there's opportunity off of. On Friday, you don't have a hit until the top of the ninth inning after 3 innings. Like, you got your last hit in the third inning. It was, it might have been Tommy's 2-run homer. And then you don't get another hit until the top of the ninth. So you don't have constant pressure there. Sunday, you score in the 5th and the 6th. You don't score, in any other frame. But I think you did see some good things offensively. Tommy White got going. We talked about that. It felt like he was ready to break out, and he did. He got going. I mean, Tommy had 5 hits over the weekend. 3 of them left the yard. Like, you saw the power a little bit from the LSU offense as well. Pearson homered. White homered 3 times. That's 4. Jared Jones had a homer. Hayden Travinski, Mac Bingham's was at 6-7 home runs or so this weekend. Like, that's a good step for this team because there is a lot of power there. I thought Pearson had a really good weekend, which is good. Like, if you can get him going, that lengthens your lineup. That's a good sign. That's a step in the right direction. When Michael Braswell had a hit in every single game this weekend, including 2 on Sunday. That's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction that will lengthen this lineup. All those types of things. That's good. That's them following the natural progression I thought we'd see from them this season. Like, I still think the offense is on track. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. But again, we knew they weren't going to be. The problem is when you pair that with what happened on the mound, you get this result. So that's the whole thing. You're going to want to talk about the offense. That ain't the reason you lost this series. You were dreadful on the mound and dreadful in the field. That's it. So I actually can look at the offense and find positives way more than I can on the mound. Does that mean they were perfect? No. I mean, you look at the 5th inning on Sunday. I mean, you got a struggling pitcher in Gerangelo Sanchez. You got a chance to blow the game open, and Josh Pearson strikes out on 3 pitches. And look, he had a great weekend. That's just one instance where I'm like, man, that was really bad at bat. Like, and then he proceeded to walk the rest of everybody else in that inning. Stephen Milam really struggled, but I'm not surprised by that. This is his first. He's a true freshman going through SEC play for the first time. It's going to take him a little bit. But we're not going to discount what he's done to this point. So that's why I look at a guy like Pearson playing well. I look at a guy like Braswell playing well. Tommy's starting to find it because I expect Stephen Milam, again, just using him as an example, to figure it out in conference play. And when he does, hopefully those guys are still going and you lengthen your lineup. That's how they'll get there offensively. So, I can find positives there. On the mound, they were bad. They were really, really bad. So we'll see what changes they make. I mean, again, it's not my job to fix it. I'm not going to tell you I know how they fix it. But they got to do something. And I think that they will. They got plenty of talent, y'all. They got plenty of talent. They got a long way to go, but they got a long way to go, I mean, you know what I mean? So, not a great weekend. Not the end of the world. You got 27 more of these things. And you're going to be tested in all of them. So, that's the thing. As bad as it was, I would not be surprised if we're sitting here a week from today talking about LSU taking a series off the Florida Gators at home. It's because it's just baseball. But they have a lot of work to do, and we're going to let them go do that work. And we'll be here to cover all of it on Musso at the Box. So, I don't really have much more. Surprising result from this weekend because of the way you got it. That's a surprising result because of the way you got it, and you feel like you're left. It's a weird feeling just because of how dominant they had been on the mound to see them struggle like that. Like if it was one game, fine, but it was 3 games. to see them struggle like that, that's where the concern comes from. So I'll be very interested to see them pitch against Louisiana Tech. It's a very veteran team. It's a very good team, and it's going to be a good test for LSU in the midweek, and then they'll welcome in the Florida Gators. We'll have you covered with all of it here on Musso at the Box. Get subscribed up, like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's greatly appreciated. And be here next time. We got more coverage for you on Musso at the Box.